How's it going, Tareck Adeeb community? I hope you're all doing well. Wow, what a time we are living in right now. It really is crazy. I think everyone that I've been speaking to recently is going through the same thing. So it's certainly not exclusive right now in terms of difficulty, stress, uncertainty. You know, there's a real foreboding going on at the moment, and I think everyone can feel it. And, you know, obviously this is massively connected to the nodes at 0 degrees. The North Node at 0 degrees Taurus right now. And the South Node, obviously, it's the opposite. It's always how it works. So let's just have a quick look at the nodes, just so we're aware of what that kind of means. What's that? Oh, yeah. So the North Node is a destiny point. That's what the nodes are about. Now, in traditional astrology, the nodes aren't really taken that seriously. So it's quite a new thing. There's quite a few books that, I think this one was kind of cool. You know, this one was the one that I first got into, you know, about the nodes, that I thought was really interesting. It was actually Eugenia that recommended that to me. And that's when before we really knew each other. But there's obviously lots of other great information that you can find out about it. But like I say, in traditional astrology, Stephen Forrest has obviously done loads of stuff with regards to, right? Yeah, Lexi, it's a good book, isn't it? Esoteric astrology, which is evolutionary astrology, has often looked at the nodes as well. But in traditional astrology, let's say, the stuff, medieval astrology, you know, they don't really consider the nodes. So it is something to consider when we're analysing charts or when we're looking at things, because not everybody takes it as seriously. Like, for example, the traditional planets, so that is, you know, when we look at the sun, the moon, the social planets, the personal planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. And then we look at the social planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and they're considered the traditional planets. So the newer ones that came along, obviously, with discovery of the telescope, and we're going to discover more and more as evolution occurs, especially with AI and, you know, what's about to happen in the world. We're going to have more discoveries, you know, that come into our consciousness, more ideas, like, for example, Chiron. You know, when Chiron came along, it's very recent, really. And then we've got Demetra George's, which I do use, her information on the asteroids. So when I do a reading, for example, I look at a lot of these things, and often when we're trying to interpret something, it's very much an individual perspective. Like, for example, recently I've been talking to people using sidereal astrology rather than tropical, which is what I use. So there's all these various different methods. Vedic astrology, so for example, the nodes in Vedic astrology is very relevant to a lot of the interpretation. So Brahma, Vishnu, and that North Node, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, and, you know, there's all these sort of ways of interpreting. So we've always got to have that level of discernment whenever we're going into interpretation, because often we can, I don't know, get overwhelmed by all this stuff, or we can, you know, invalidate a lot of this stuff, you know, and that's why we've really got to be clear about how we interpret things ourselves. And ultimately, this is why we'll always say this is the most important thing that I can offer you all in terms of understanding, and that is, you've got to be in your heart. You know, that to me is the key. Because if we're in the intellect, there's always going to be, that's right, that's wrong. This is left, this is right. This is why we have so much polarity in the world right now. Most people are in their mind. So yes, you do have to have a cerebral element to interpretation. There is an intellectual aspect. Most astrologers are very intelligent people. But do they have the level of awareness and integration and understanding to make this relevant? You know, you're investing time listening to this. There's obviously a vibrational connection. You're feeling what I'm saying, and there must be some kind of resonance to this co-creation, which, you know, I put myself into this world, into this internet world, into this, and you know, the astrologers that I've known and people that I've followed, it's so many years back, honestly, you know, and you know, there's been so many times I could have had the opportunity to put myself forward in this world, and there's always been something holding me back. So when I look at my chart, obviously that's to do with Chiron in Aries. I mean, that's my generation. And interestingly, Chiron is in Aries now. But not to deviate from what I'm trying to say about the nodes too much, obviously you have to look at the whole chart. This is why, again, when you get a reading, you know, someone is looking at it from the whole perspective, but they are limited, or they are focused on what makes sense to them to give a good interpretation. And then levels of discernment come in. So, for example, when I went down this rabbit hole with astrology, I was never expecting to read charts. I just so happened to meet someone who was a lot younger than me, and he kind of introduced me to a whole group of younger people. And then they were just so open and willing, and I might have mentioned this before, but they were so open and willing to have their chart read that it felt like a service. And I was so, let's say, unaware of things like traditional astrology. You know, I haven't met so many of the astrologers that I've met now. I certainly wasn't doing a master's then. But I did it because it felt of service, and that's really what astrology is about. And to be honest, a lot of the interpretations I did then, because it was so authentic, it was so heartfelt, it was so coming from a place of authenticity, that in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say I was a better astrologer then, but I was just so in the moment. Obviously I was limited by my knowledge, but it definitely had an impact. And some of those people I'm still in connection with now. Big up, Dan, I know you're on this. And, you know, a lot of these people, when I look at where they were when they were like 18, 19, 20, and now they're going through their Saturn return and they're coming into their ascendancy, it was such a privilege for me to be with those people, because obviously the age difference was stark. But what happened was, by getting over myself and doing the best that I could, and just being of service, because that's really what astrology is all about, it had such an impact on them that a lot of those people are now so more aware of themselves, that they've developed a level of discernment, and they've developed a level of patience and integrity, that they are now becoming really more themselves. And, you know, they're grateful to me, but I'm grateful to them for having the opportunity to be so innocent, you know, and so pure, really. And that's really what I'm trying to get at here. Interpretation, it doesn't matter how much you know, really. If you're coming from your authentic self and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's completely relevant. Yes, I'm far better astrologer now. I've studied with some of the best in the world, and I'm still studying, you know. Recently, you know, I've been studying with Ray Merriman, you know, in terms of financial astrology. And there's so many other great astrologers out there, you know, which I could mention on this channel, which I will, hopefully, and I'll start interviewing them at some point when Tareck Adeeb comes out, because I am very respectful to those people. Sadly, the world of astrology, though, there can be a lot of, I think, pretension, and, you know, I'm right, you're wrong. It's a very intellectual thing. And I'm not into that. I'm really not. Like, for me, it's much more to do with being in the heart. And that is what Tareck Adeeb is about. That's what the Path to Peace, the website, the podcast that is coming out, is all about. It's not about the ego. It's not about getting everything right. It's about being authentic. It's about being individual. And someone with no knowledge could have more insights because they are so in tune with their heart. You know, they are so connected to themselves, you know, i.e. self-awareness. And therefore, they almost like channel information, because they're not letting the mind, i.e. right, wrong, get in the way of it. And that's why Reiki is so powerful too. You know, that's why I get so much credibility from my Reiki, because I really just let my mind get out of the way, and I just focus on the practice and the tools, and be allowing of the energy to heal. And it's weird because, you know, it really doesn't require any thought. Obviously, you've got to have gone through certain experiences, I think, to channel that energy. But the best healers really are the people who don't let the mind get in the way of the service. And that's what I'm trying to say here. So the point I'm trying to make really is, you've got to, if you're feeling into this, if it feels right, and again, my monthly readings that I do, the reason why people, you know, and I've got to know these people now over years of doing it, is that it just always seems to be accurate. And I feel really, really privileged that I've got a great relationship with those people now. And again, you've got to have a limit on these things, you know, because otherwise it's not going to be as personal. So all of these things are considerations, and in terms of interpretation, you've got to be discerning. You know, if this doesn't feel right to you, if this isn't the right method for you, then you know that's okay. You know, it's like, no, I don't resonate with that particular person. You know, and that could be me. If you resonate with me, and this is helpful to you, and you're feeling into this, and you're getting more into your heart, and you're becoming more discerning, and you're starting to access your personal power, you're starting to action who you really are in the world, then I feel so privileged that you're in my life right now. And if that is helping, and if I'm helping you, then I'm so excited to meet you, because it's going to happen. You know, we are going to create avenues and opportunities, as I said the other week, to see you face to face. And once this community starts, you know, Eugenia's got her community, you know, Accessible Astrology, which, you know, I'm very connected to. You know, it looks like, you know, I'll be doing more teaching in that community. However, our brands, you know, are very, very different. You know, she's much more like in the science, methodical, you know, kind of like data, and it's very suited to her, you know, being an Aquarius, for example. And we're going to do podcasts just explaining all of this soon. But for me, you know, I'm much more like social, you know, personal. I'm much more about soft skills. I'm much more about using astrology as a way, and Reiki and whatever other methods I'm going to be using, to get you into your authenticity. And I want to see you in the world, you know. Like I say, I could have been doing this years ago, like some of the astrologers that I met years ago, you know. But I haven't done it, maybe because of my Chiron in Aries, because I've been a bit too shy, or because, and also maybe I'm not ego enough, you know, to get wanting the attention. But it might also be my insecurity, you know, this Chiron in Aries, and fear of not being, you know, of the judgment and things like that about doing this. But now I'm coming into my Chiron return, you know, just so you just give it away, you know, I'm getting older. But the point is that because of this, you know, I'm in a situation now where I have to express, you know, what it is that I'm here to do, because otherwise I'm not going to be of service. You know, that's what it comes down to. And everyone that is feeling this foreboding right now, you know, everyone who is feeling the crisis that is really prevalent in the world at the moment, you know, everybody who is just feeling the tension in the world, you know, that's probably the reason why you're connecting to me, so I can help, you know, and to allow you to trust the process, to allow you to relax into this like unknown energy that we're in. And I'll explain the astrology now, because again, the nodes to me do have relevance. I believe that. And because we've got this, like I say, North Node at 0 degrees Taurus right now, and not just that, so the North Node is a destiny point. That's where as an individual heading towards. But the South Node is like the collective. In the natal chart individually, it's very much to do with, you know, what is familiar, something that is in the past, that is connected. I mean, again, different levels of astrology have different interpretations. Evolutionary astrology sees it as more karmic or past life stuff. But looking at mundane astrology or other forms of astrology, we can see that it's something that is innate, you know, something that is more integral. So you could look at it, let's say, genealogy in terms of parents. You could see it in terms of environment. You could even see it in terms of nurture, let's say, where we grew up and our conditioning. So what was familiar is the South Node, and what we're arriving at, or what our destiny point, is the North Node. And in terms of the collective, not the natal now, the collective chart, the South Node, we've all been going through this scorpionic experience. And there's many interpretations of Scorpio. It's all, again, individual in terms of the North Node, how we've been experiencing that. So obviously our environment has been very, very significant to us, because Taurus is very much to do with fixed earth. So our environment. That's why Eugenia and I called the kit that we did a couple of years ago, we called it Survive or Thrive. You know, it's very earth bound. It's very money orientated. It has those themes. Now, So much has happened, since the node shifted at the start of, was it 2021? Yeah. So much has happened since then. For example, Jupiter is now in Taurus. So there was so much difficulty last year. Just to give context, there was the Saturn-Uranus square, and there was so much going on in Taurus, with the nodes there, Uranus there, and so much more, that I could talk about. But the South Node with Scorpio, the experience of Scorpio is obviously connected to money. It's obviously connected to power. That's when the Ukraine war kind of kicked off, in 2021. So the theme of war and these sorts of things, sadly, has been quite prolific. Jupiter was in Aries. So now, where we are now, before the node shift, and again, if you want to get really good at this sort of stuff in terms of prediction, you can go back to when the node shifted into Sagittarius and Gemini. And that also happened in, I think it was May 2020. So looking at all these movements, of where we're arriving now. So if the reason why you're listening to this, I hope, is because you want to individuate. You want to become sovereign. You want to make the difference in the world. You want to be in a path of peace. You want to thrive as well. Everybody, I hope, who listens to this, who spends time listening to this, wants to be successful, wants to be the change. And that's what the highlighted phrase was last week, in this talk, was, be the change that you want to see in the world. That's who I want to be connected with, and that's why I'm making the time and effort and to be of service, because as a community, as individual sovereign people, not only will we thrive, we will have great community and we'll have a great time on Earth. And seriously, on the other side of all this mad change that's going on right now, there is so much to look forward to. There really, really is. So obviously we want to be healthy. We want to live a long life once we get to the other side of this. Likewise, we want to be of service. You want to help others, because that's what's going to create a lot of fun, joy, and happiness on the planet. And, I really believe the universe, God, Source will really provide for us if we are on that wave, if we are authentic enough to be an inspiration to others and to activate our unique gifts and abilities and do all this. Not only will we be rewarded for that, we will create wonderful energy and light on the planet, and we'll have a lot of good fun. I mean, again, I'm motivated by having fun, you see. So, there's been so much heaviness and seriousness. A lot of that is to do with that Scorpio stuff as well. And we're so close to the end of that now. Okay, so again, a lot of this is very much to do with Uranus in Taurus. It's going to be very interesting when these nodes shift, because it's just Jupiter and Uranus left in Taurus then. And that is a big deal, again, in terms of the shift of the old to the new. Uranus is to do with unexpected change. We've been having this experience since May of 2018. So much has happened since then, right? The whole election thing, the emergence of the East, we're really seeing the BRICS nations come into the fore now. Cryptocurrency, there's just so many factors that are destabilizing the old world into the new world. And, Uranus will pivot around this Gemini-Taurus axis for a little bit. We'll talk about that more in the future. But seriously, by 2027, 2028, we really are in a very, very different Earth then. And we've got bigger factors to come before then. Saturn conjunct Neptune, 0 degrees Aries, and that's in February of 2026. We're just going to this this Uranus and Jupiter thing. Jupiter and Uranus, when they conjunct next year in April, that is the target. You think about Sagittarius, you think about Jupiter, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. It's having the arrow, it's having the goal, it's having the focus, it's having the bullseye. We want to hit that bullseye when we get to April. Everyone who's listening to this right now, we need to know that, because whatever's about to happen this month, or whatever's coming, especially when we get to October, because the eclipses will be there then as well, we've really got to be grounded in the heart, relaxed, so we can handle what's coming. if you haven't got the Thrival kit, which is what we did a couple of years ago, you need to know about that information, and I'll speak. Amy, we'll talk about that and see how we can get people that if they haven't got it already yet. And likewise, the launch kit, which was happening this year, it's happened now, if you see what I mean. Jupiter is in Taurus. That was very much to do with why we called it the launch kit. And where we are now, so this is context, the Chinese New Year has occurred. That has happened. We're in the water rabbit energy now. We're in the energy of the individual, the collective. The equinox has happened. We're in the new astrological new year. That happens in March in the tropical astrology, And now we're about to have the nodal shift. So we've had the launch in May. We've had Saturn into Pisces in March. However, Pluto is back into Capricorn. I mentioned that a lot last week. So now we're in this fight. We're in this real, very fascinating and terrifying as well. This is why we've got to be in love, not fear. So important now. Everybody who's listening to this, you've really got to get over yourselves as much as you possibly can. Because if we're really understanding the nature of the future, which is to do with vibration, frequency, it's much more connected than people realise. And obviously when quantum physics goes to the next level because of AI, when transparency becomes far more prolific, again, because of the AI, then whatever's going to get revealed, whatever's going to get seen, whatever is not in harmony or what is positive about the future, the evolution, will be revealed, and it will be potentially eliminated or exposed. So we've got to be prepared for that. And it's like anything, usually a cancer cell, when it destroys something, is very small. It's like the Wizard of Oz, It seems the Great Oz, but actually it's just a small person, frail person behind a curtain who is, doing what they can, using their technology or using whatever to make themselves look far bigger than what they are. But actually, it's really not. It's like when Gandhi, a great example of someone who could destabilise a very powerful empire, the British Empire. And how did he choose to do it? Well, he fasted, he wasn't setting militias and things like that to destabilise the British Empire. Obviously, he wanted sovereignty. He wanted his country back, All those resources were being used. And, it's forgiveness is a big part of all of this as well. It's not like, oh, you horrible people, look what you've done. It's like, no, they tried their best to perpetuate their power. And that's what powers do. And invariably, they fall. Same thing with Rome, when Jesus Christ espoused his doctrine, he was crucified for it, but his legacy lasted, and that's the difference. That's how these empires topple, So right now, really, we're in this great experience of the American, is it a republic or is it an empire? And that's really what this Pluto return is about for America. And obviously America is the most powerful country in the world. But you have, again, check out the Ray Dalio stuff. We talked a lot about this in my mentorship. The Ray Dalio is very interesting about the emerging countries is what he talks about in that book. I can't remember what the book's called now, but just check it out. And there's YouTube stuff that you can watch on it. And emerging nations always come up. And the times that we're in right now, inflation, excess money printing, and that's what potentially is about to really come in now or from now until October. So we still haven't had the resolution, in Ukraine. We still haven't had the answer, the Bretton Woods answer to this ridiculous money printing and Wall Street cash grab and the elites getting richer and, the Great Reset, basically, the whole, doctrine of you will have nothing and be happy, whatever. So there is still time, and that's why you're listening to this. That's why you are the ones who are going to create the change. You're listening to this to become empowered and to find peace in such dramatic times. And yes, stakes are high right now. There's a lot going on in the world thankfully, that we don't know about. Like, ignorance is bliss to a certain extent. But having said that, ignorance is also no defense. If you know what you know, and whatever it is, you can still be kind. You can still be a good person. You can still find gratitude. All of those things are conscious decisions. And the more we take ownership of ourself and how we're accountable to what happens, and this is to do with the Venus retrograde now, what happens with relationship, we will answer the consequences of what we choose not to do. Now, it's also another level where you can go really authentic and two sovereign individuals work out their differences, and it might mean that it doesn't work out. That's also potentially at stake here. Or they redefine their relationship and maybe it's not what they thought it was, and all that can happen in this Venus retrograde. So there's so many things happening right now that's forcing us to become more authentic, forcing us to have those conversations. And the cookbook astrology stuff, it's like with Venus retrograde, we might have a whole new image. We might, I don't know, dye our hair or change how we look, and that can also happen. So we've got to be open to these things. The worst that can happen is that we get to the eclipses in October, we haven't made the necessary adjustments, we haven't had those conversations, we haven't chosen authenticity and sovereignty, and then it ends up in much worse situation. Like the economic stuff forces one to make very strong decisions, or breakups occur, or things like that. So we've got to be mindful with this information. We've got to trust the process. We've got to be strong, sovereign individuals. Everyone who listens to this, I hope that you can do that and take a chance and communicate and proliferate your unique gifts and abilities, at this particular time. Everything is going retrograde, it's really weird. We're going to have a Mercury retrograde next month, for example, So it's this foreboding, it's this feeling of uncertainty, this unsettling feeling, what's going to happen next. And I believe that a lot of that is to do with these nodes about to shift. And, the more weird it gets, we are going to move into space travel in the future. We are going to move into all sorts of crazy stuff like the Mayans prophesized. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But seriously, you think about AI, you think about that as a real thing. And you think about how that starts to work with all the analytics and robotics and stuff like that. Why can't robots fly over wherever, and grab gold or mineral resources and changes all these scarce resources or free energy and all these things that potentially have been hidden to us, which AI will expose. And the entire financial system, if it's a racket, the war machine, if it's all a racket, how that will just get exposed. And you've got machines fighting machines, and, again, there's this fear of Terminator and whatever else. But again, this is our opportunity now. This really is our time to work with these new technologies, these new tools. Every single person who's in this space, social media, whatever, everyone knows that this is just a remarkable time. Like the level of efficiency, expediency, the level of growth is prolific. It's mind-boggling. That's why you've got to be in your heart. That's why you've got to trust what's going on. We don't want to go into fear, i.e. our emotions, which can be very scared right now. Yes, stakes are high. So we've really got to proliferate this feeling of grace, this feeling of kindness, this feeling of trust. And that's what will make the difference on the planet. I do believe it, it's like resonance is a very powerful thing. That's why some people like crystals and things like that. Because if you understand those technologies or those subtle vibrations and you work with these things, it can really help with your being, your feeling of safety. And a lot of people dismiss that stuff because, again, science can easily go, oh, well, it's not credible, it's this and that. And what does that do? It forges people in the mind. This is right, this is wrong. And a lot of those people, if, let's say, for example, disclosure happens, i.e. we suddenly start being revealed, AI reveals that aliens have existed, or prehistories have existed, or whatever, and all these suddenly things start to come into the media, as it is happening right now, then it'll be very, very traumatic, for people who are in the mind, left, right, people who are in dogma, for example. Even religions, how are they going to cope with that experience of saying, well, there are extraterrestrials that have existed? But again, we've got to be really careful not to lose sight, of being grounded, because there's so much distortion in the world right now. There's so much media hijacking. There is so much deception going on. And this is very much the Neptune in Pisces stuff. However, if you are relaxed, in trust, you're doing the necessary work to make you a place of peace. And like I say, it's coming. We're going to help as much as we can with this. A great example, you go for a hypnotherapy session, and you clear something that you weren't aware of. You go for an EMDR session. Breath work is now something that we're really starting to look at. You can do these things to get rid of these traumas, these stuck energies. Acupuncture, great thing to do. If you can do all of these things and keep grounded, then the wave will break regardless. Some people will be surfing it, that would be a great thing to do, okay? Some people will have absolutely no awareness of it, and they'll just carry on. That's like the meek, the meek that inherit the earth. And some will get wiped out, the people who are not in integrity, or being arrogant, or not being sovereign. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and it only really takes 5 or 10% of consciousness on the planet to make the difference. And don't underestimate, if you're feeling at peace, if you're relaxed, if you're doing everything you can to get rid of negative feelings, if you're making the necessary adjustment in relationship, to find peace, respect, to find harmony, if you're doing what you can in the community, to help others who might not be as good as you, it could be anything. It could be a nice smile, it could be a kind word, it could be giving a shit for a second and just spending a bit of time with someone. It could be random acts of kindness. All of that can make you feel so good. And it's not about me, self, scared, it's more about giving, loving, trusting, all these wonderful qualities that exist on the earth. If we're doing that individually, then I believe truly it has a resonance, it has an effect on the outcome. And when everything seems at its worst and the world has gone to hell, it's up to us then to find the grace and the sovereignty to trust that there is always a way. And there is always a way. That's something that I really need you to feel into your heart. There's always a way. Even at the most hardest and most difficult of times, there's always a way. And that's when the genius comes in. That's Aquarius. That's when divinity, Saturn in Pisces, allows us the grace to find a way. Just like with this Neptune in Pisces as well, we could easily get confused and disheartened, and we can go into a negative place. We can check out. But again, this Venus retrograde is very good for discipline. So getting rid of bad habits, a great time to do that. All of these things, disciplines and awareness is very helpful at this time when things are so uncertain. So, when we're looking at the month, this week ahead, can you believe how fast time is going? It's really, really crazy, isn't it, to think that here we are, on the 10th of July. And, Mars has gone into Virgo now. So Mars is separated from Venus. Venus is on her own, even though Mercury's coming. And Mercury flies very quickly this month, by the way. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about, if you're in your heart, Leo is a very heart-based energy. It's very relevant to this communication that I'm saying right now. Likewise, Mercury, the mind, the left brain thinking, can integrate this heart-based sentiment. So again, what we need to do here with Mars going into Virgo as well is get your ducks in a row. Have conversations right now. Get the goals set. You know, Virgo is very good for work. It's also very good for clarity. It's an earth-based sign. You know, Mercury also rules Virgo, so it's left brain again. So Mars in Virgo is very productive. So we can be really structured right now, rather than this Neptunian stuff or this Uranus and Taurus, this crazy thing going on, i.e. uncertainty and stability. No, enough's enough, basically. And now it's time to get clarity, you know, to be genuine, authentic. And all of that's going to help massively in this very unnerving period of time. Because in a week's time, when I speak to you, the nodes will have shifted. And we've got a week before, we've got 0 degrees Taurus, 0 degrees Scorpio. That's why it's so unsettling right now. Because we're about to shift into Libra and Aries. There's more fire coming. We're coming out of earth and water. We're coming into air and fire. And not just that, with this water rabbit, the Chinese New Year stuff, this South Node in Libra is going to bring a lot of like justice, and we're seeing it in France, you know, we're seeing the potential for volatility. We're seeing the people power or the unrest, the civil unrest potentially. And, you know, it's weird that I'm in America, you know, why I chose to be here. Obviously I followed love to be here. And there's a lot at stake right now. You know, the same thing with the Ukraine war. We don't know what's going on. We don't really know the truth of it. You know, there's good and bad. Both sides have an opinion. The fact they haven't found a resolution is a problem. You know, and sadly, you know, any crisis could happen right now. That's why we need to really feel into peace, feel into the heart, do everything we can to send positive vibrations out in the world right now. We've got to pray if that's what works for us, but we've got to be connected to the best outcome, because all of that, again, if you read Greg Braden's work, or people who use collective meditation, you know, for healing on the planet, that's what we have to do right now. We have to do as much as we can of that, because there are things out of our control. However, the Gaia sphere, or Gaia, you know, if you want to look into that way of thinking, if Gaia is feeling our positive vibration, not our fear, feeling our love, you know, feeling our trust, feeling our hope, then that's the best that we can do. You know, I used to work with this energy for years, by the way. You know, I would go to the river, or I would go to a sacred place, and I would set good intentions in that place, and I'd work with the Gaia sphere. I'd work with the ley lines. I do that kind of work a lot. Put crystals in places and things like that. And you know what? I'm still here. And we haven't had World War III yet. You know, we haven't had any horrible crisis. And there could easily be fake stuff as well that comes out. We don't know. So that's why we've got to be relaxed. That's why we need to have people in our lives that we can trust. People that we could talk to, communicate, if anything was to happen. Obviously, the Survive, Thrive toolkit that we gave you all had lots of resources to help in times of crisis. But now we're launching into this new world. And Pluto in Capricorn is really the last fight of the old world before we radically shift into the new world next year. The eclipses will be very pivotal in October. And then in the new year, with this emergence of Jupiter conjunct Uranus, we want to be in this community thriving at that time. You know, if you're releasing an album, if you're releasing some art, if you are, I don't know, going to cash out with crypto even, you know, even though it's very speculative, all of that. If you're going to take profits, for example, whatever you're going to do, you know, we want to be in a very strong position then, because the old world has to end, you know, it has to transform into the new world. You know, that's why this astrology has been so helpful. That's why someone like myself, who had no knowledge of this and certainly no community of it, is doing this. You know, I was compelled. It was like fate that brought me to this. And now here I am telling you about this stuff, preparing you. So I really want everyone this week in particular, because obviously next week the nodes will have shifted. I genuinely want everyone to really go into their prayer. People, I want you to go into your trust right now. I really want you to go into your sense of peace, you know, be in a place of peace and do whatever it takes right now. You know, if your relationship isn't going well, you might need time out. You know, that doesn't mean the relationship's over. It might mean I need space. I need some space to remember why I love you. Or I need space to remember who I am because I've lost sense of myself, for example. Or I need to get clear now why things are in harmony. However, if it's all good right now, then make love, you know, not war. Go deep into that, you know, really go into the sense of sacred sexuality if that's what you want to do. Get clear, right? It's time to get married, you know, for example. That's what Venus retrogrades can do. It's time to have children. You know, all of these various ways of going deeper. Because remember, we are right at the end of this Scorpio South Node. The higher aspect of this 18 months, you know, this Scorpio Taurus, Scorpio is about intimacy. You know, we are finding the people that we can be intimate with, you know, that we can trust. That's really what it's about. You know, you should now have the right people in your tribe, or the people that you can really count on. This last 3 years has been a huge process of discernment. You know, we saw it in extreme examples, what I did anyway, seeing it here in America, where it is still like this. I mean, it's good and bad, but let's say in England it's different, you know. But certainly in America, the whole left and right thing, you know, when it was Trump, Biden, and it still sounds like that now, you know, and it still has that. It was so polarized. And even people who live in America, they told me, you know, they said, it's never been like this before. You know, everyone could accept each other's differences, and that's what we're living in at the moment, this polarization. It's the fourth turning, if you want to look at that stuff as well. And then also, you know, now, you know, this vaccine, non-vaccine thing, and then, and really now it's a case of the haves and the have-nots. You know, can you afford to pay your rent? You know, is you got any money coming in? I mean, it's just more of it. It's more of this difficulty, you know, that we've got to navigate through. We've got to find a way, you know. You think about someone who lives on, when I went to India, you know, dal and rice, which is like a lentils and rice. You could live easily on £1 a day, you know, somewhere like that. You don't have to have all this excess. You need to do what is required for you to thrive. And that can be humility as well. It can be simplicity. It doesn't have to be all the expectations and grandiosity of keeping up with the Joneses as well. But the most important thing, when this nodal shift occurs, the water rabbit really kicks in. You know, the new year, the astrological new year is really kicking in now. Jupiter is going to be going retrograde in September. Uranus goes retrograde, by the way, this month too. No, Uranus goes retrograde. Sorry, next month. Jupiter goes retrograde in September. Yeah, that's what it is. The point I'm making here is that connection of Jupiter and Uranus is going to get closer and closer, and then in April it's really important that we're already at that time to make money and profit. Obviously, we've got to build towards that, but things can exponentially grow. That will be the difference. This bifurcation. Those that get hit hard, their savings go. Whatever's going to happen, people go down and down and down. You know, the stress, the chaos, as people who are on the right side of it, technology, AI, working out how to make money, taking a punt, you know, they will go up at that time. It'll be so obvious. So this week, this is the week, get your goals in order, Mars into Virgo. Let go of the grief energy, you know, let go of the hellish experiences we've all had in the last year and a half, and remember who's in your tribe, and get ready, because this individuation, this collective consciousness, this this passion is going to get really exemplified. And the Chiron in Aries as well, you know, it's going to be very interesting, because people who choose to go, again, disingenuous, unauthentic, not reveal their talent into the world, you know, don't get on with it, you know, don't commit, connect, do all the things that are required for intimacy, if you see what I mean. They'll go more introvert, you know, they'll go more distant, they'll go more dystonic. You know, there's been so much cognitive dissonance that's occurred, you know, the last 3 years. People have got so isolated. And it's almost as if like the collective or whatever it is, this Libra energy, this justice energy, is going to come find them. So the best thing you can do is surrender, trust, be yourself, but it doesn't have to be like some kind of like Scrooge moment where, oh, I've had my epiphany and I've had to go to hell and all these ghosts have had to come to make that clear. No, small steps, always small steps, you know, the slight edge, just doing a little bit every day. It's easy to do, it's easy not to do. So just do it a little bit every day. And you'll find peace on earth, or you will find the place that you need to be. And yes, this shift might create a lot of urgency, so we'll have to wait and see. Certainly the eclipses in October will make it very clear then. So we've got time to make small adjustments to the greater good and to find your place on earth, which will be heavenly, beautiful and fun. Don't forget the fun. Don't forget the fun, says the Sagittarius, eh? So Mercury is going to enter Leo as well tomorrow. So we've got a lot of change coming now. Really, really have. And the squares to the nodes is very much to do with, again, this changing moment, changing of the guard, the old world versus the new world. And then, and that's really all I'm going to say. The sun also squares Chiron as well. So that happens on the 12th. So there's a lot of crunch moments, you know, and it's very much to do with your environment. That's really the key right now. So we've all forged to be where we need to be at this moment. I mean, you got to have empathy and you got to have gratitude, you know, if you're not suffering like certain people in the world, like, you know, you think about Israel, Palestine, you know, the difficulties there. You think about Ukraine, you think about all the places that are war-torn, I mean, savage situations that, you know, they're in. And you send out compassion, send out love, send out hope, and pray and be grateful for the fact that you're in peace and you have all these great opportunities. And yes, if we're over leveraged, you know, with credit and stuff like that, we don't know when the money's going to come in, then you got to take action. You got to speak to the right people right now. If you're feeling depressed, you're not happy, you might need time out. You might need to go see a therapist. You might need to just have a couple of days off. You could do whatever it takes right now to get into that place of peace. And I think what's wonderful about Scorpio, before we lose the wonderful healing energy of Scorpio, is that you've got to laugh as well. I mean, that's the great gift of Scorpio. If you really understand how bad it is and how shit it is, you know, because, you know, Scorpio rules the sphincter, you know, it's like sometimes you got to take a crap and get rid of all the shit, you know, that's how it is. There's humour in that, you know. Find the dark humour if that's what you need as well. If you're stuck, you can't escape, you feel trapped, find humour right now, because that will at least lighten things up a little bit as well. So that's all I'm going to say. You know, it's a big week because we're really shifting now into new times, and it's going to be very, very obvious. And again, how we can affect the outcome is to be in peace, is to find contentment as best as we can. Even if you're bored, is better than being depressed, isn't it? Just accept it. Know this too shall pass. Do a little bit every day to work out where you need to get to. And God willing, when we get to next week, there's been no crisis, you know. And then when we get to the following week, you know, when we get to see so much change this month, you know, so much oppositions and things like that, you know, and Pluto squaring the nodes, you know, because the nodes will be shifting. You know, when we get to past the 23rd, you know, we can kind of, I think, breathe a sigh of relief, you know, that if there hasn't been anything really intense in the world, then we've got through it, you know. You know, less is more. And if we keep maintaining this path to peace and we keep maintaining sovereignty, we keep trusting the process, then whatever's going to shift in the world, it might be something absolutely nuts like disclosure, alien stuff, then we will be okay, you know. So let's trust, let's just be at peace, let's see what's going to come, and if no news is good news, let's just keep relaxed, keep calm, keep trusting the process right now. One day at a time, 1 minute at a time, day by day. And if you could be creative at the moment, this is one of the best times. You know, this South Node in Libra. Remember, Libra is the artist. You know, that's what could be so powerful in these next 18 months. Anyone could be an artist now with AI, you know, if you actually study it and play with it. But to be a genuine participator in this time, this next 18 months, could be exponential, you know, with NFTs, you know, with the technology, you know, being a part of, let's say, the Renaissance, which is what our opportunity is right now. Being a part of this great unfolding is like basically being the Leonardo da Vinci's of you know, what people will look back at and see, say, you know, that was a Leonardo da Vinci, that was, you know, all the great Renaissance artists. This is our moment. It really is. And if you were a blues artist, you know, back in, you know, horrible times, you know, when blues was created, you know, and the plantations and things like that, if they'd have had the technology, if they'd have been all created as NFTs, those blues artists, who a lot of them died very poor, and yet they created modern music, for example, would be the richest people on earth. So do not underestimate this technology. It's way early, but wow, if you can get in there with this technology, the NFTs, which are coming over the next 18 months for sure, so definitely next year, then you might be, I call it like the universal library, you know, like the great library of Alexandria was burnt down, you know, all that information was taken. And that's why there's sadly a lot of war potential or anger or resentment. I mean, you know, that's why we've got to be positive. It's the same thing, you know, with the blood that was done on the Native Americans, the Aborigines, these sorts of things. And the retribution that could happen could be very intense in terms of ecological stuff. However, if we're in appreciation, if we're in knowledge, if we're in forgiveness, we can change the outcome because we're connecting to the Gaia sphere. So it's a lot of information I'm giving you there, and I'm sure it's pretty deep and heavy. Just relax, and to sum it all up, day by day, pray, I think. Pray right now, really, really pray for the greatest good. And be creative. You know, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling the blues, sing your heart out, you know, or write a song, or if you're feeling really angry, hit that punch bag, you know, don't go into violence, you know, especially with the people that are nearest and dearest, you know, this is not the time for that. Likewise, don't just check out as well. It's better to have discipline at this time and get rid of bad habits. It's the time to do it with this Venus retrograde. And we're so close to that. It's coming now. We'll be talking about that next week. But we're in the shadow period, so, you know, we're really in it now. All right, well, that's all I'm going to say. I can't see any questions. Thanks for listening. Listen, if this is helpful to you and you think others can benefit from it, please share this information, you know, or, you know, ask others to subscribe, you know, to Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel, and soon we'll have a community in Tareck Adeeb as well. And obviously, if you want to get a reading, you know, now's a good time to do it. Take care, lots of love, and hang in there. It's going to be amazing at the other side of this, and we're going to make a lot of money potentially and help a lot of people as well. Take care.